What's up guys, and welcome back to another video. I want to start with apologize because in this recording there was some technical issue that prevent the video to show up, so there is only audio in this awesome interview that I had with Elizabeth Greene. This is her third time here in the channel. She's a PPC expert and we're talking about Prime Day result, about search term changes that might affect the performance and the way that you get your traffic now, which is very big change. And also we discuss some other cool features in regards to Amazon. What is more important, sales or actual rankings? So this is a very fascinating interview that I had with her that you must watch, and I apologize again because you can't really see anything, so it's not really watching, it's more hearing. And of course check the resources and all the information that I put in the video description to help you become a better seller. Let's start with this awesome interview. Welcome Elizabeth, and thank you for being a guest here again in the channel. I think that's the third time, so I always got good feedback on the previous times that you came here, so thank you again for that. And in today's, you know what, before we jump into those that don't know you, why you don't give a little introduction about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. So hi, my name is Elizabeth Greene. I'll keep what we do very short and sweet. So we help Amazon sellers grow their sales through effective Amazon advertising strategies. It's kind of our core offer. So yeah, we're going to be talking a lot about Amazon advertising today, and specifically Amazon advertising to be able to hit that sales growth. So super stoked for this one. And thanks for having me on. I always had a blast on our previous conversations.
Of course. Yeah, and follow Elizabeth on LinkedIn. She have really amazing content there that I actually have a task that is like every day it's keep coming, and one the task is to actually check a lot of LinkedIn profiles, and you're the top 5 that I check to see what's new, what's not new, what's going on. And sometimes it's just one idea or one line that's like it serves as a reminder or it's something new. So thank you for sharing all this valuable information with everyone in the community. The community really helps, I'm sure, not just me. So today we want to talk about some recent changes in match types that not many people are aware of, or what do they mean. And you brought it up yesterday about the match types. What happened recently, if you can share, or what changed, and what does it mean to sellers?
Yeah. So these are some sneaky changes that Amazon's making. I mean, the cynic in me maybe has no more nefarious reason subscribe to what they're doing. Honestly, I don't think it's super nefarious. That they're saying that this will help Amazon sellers get more traffic. So I mean, which can be useful. I mean, we have what I consider like the Amazon growth equation, which is essentially sessions, which is traffic to the listing. So traffic multiplied by conversions multiplied by your average order value is going to equal sales. If you want to make your sales go up, make any of those 3 numbers go up and your sales will go up. So yeah, I can get, maybe I can get the reasoning. I'm still not super stoked about it.
I think they care about themselves and less about the sellers, to be honest, because it doesn't.
The cynic in me. I mean, I don't want to bite the hand that feeds me. I mean, I've talked to several of the internal teams, and they've, especially like with development of bulk files, and it's very obvious to me that they're listening. So they'll roll out of like sponsored product tab in the bulk files. That was actually something that was my personal request. I'm sure other people requested as well. I'm not saying that was only because of me saying something, but they're definitely listening. So on some level, yes, they're listening. But so for those of you listening in, you probably are very familiar with the match types. And when I say that there's been changes to the match types, I don't mean that they're adding new match types. And that's actually where my how would I phrase this? That's where my annoyances lie with these updates, because we got additional match types, right? We got expanded ASIN targeting. I think that's super cool. It was a rollout that was an addition to what was already existing, which allows us more capabilities and actually allows us like I said, to garner more traffic, which is awesome. And there's cool strategies we built out with that. These updates are not, they're changes to how existing things work. And the problem that I find with that is that if it's a change to how something existing works, then if you have current ad structure set up to kind of capitalize on how something's already working and how it does work, well, if there's a change to that, then you essentially in some ways have to change your ad structure, or at least be aware of it and start managing it in a different way.
Especially from your end, where you build like the whole like account strategy and it's on scale, like it's hard. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yes. So if anyone has been plugged into the Amazon advertising community at all, there was a I'm gonna call it outrage, kind of an outrage from a lot of us, when it came to how broad match type function. And that was, I believe it was towards the beginning of this year. Time moves so fast. I'm trying to remember. It's been a little while. And so where we're finding these changes happen is in the search term reports. There is no updates from Amazon. There's no notifications. There's no nothing. What's happening is that we're all finding these weird things happen in the search term reports and going, okay, so like, are you all seeing this? Because I'm seeing it and like cross-checking it across multiple accounts and like these things are happening. So
could you give more details on what do you see in the search?
Yeah, so it was a change in broad match. So if you're familiar with sponsored product broad match, for a search term to trigger, every single individual word has to appear in the search term. So for instance, if I'm targeting the keyword, one I keep using is like sneakers, right? If I'm targeting sneakers, I can show up for men's sneakers, women's sneakers, kids sneakers, like any variations of this. If you got multiple words, they can be changed around, but all of those root words that you're targeting have to be contained in the search for it to trigger. Now, this was not the case in sponsored brands broad match. Sponsored brands broad match always worked like this. They would target what they consider relevant searches. So for the keyword sneakers, you could show up for running shoes because the algorithm is saying like, okay, these are similar. We're going to show these on these additional searches. Which, I mean, we always knew that that's the way it functions. So we built up strategies around that. And to be honest, there's a lot of us who didn't even use broad match and sponsored brand ads due to this kind of nuance.
Functionality,
yeah. So what happened is a lot of people were going over the search term reports like you do. And they were like, wait, I'm seeing this happen in my search term reports, but these are sponsored product ads. These are not sponsored brand ads. So we all were like,
on sponsored products on regular.
Right. So everyone's like asking the Amazon reps and no one gave us an answer. To this day, I don't think I've heard anything directly from a rep. The thing that we noticed is they very quietly, if you go and look up like Amazon advertising match types on their description page, the description is now changed to only say broad match. And that was retroactive after this update happened because everyone's looking at the page going like, wait, I don't think like, so there you go. So now we're like, okay, great. Now we have to change what we're doing and the sponsored product broad match now. Okay, great. But there was all this uncertainty because none of us were getting answers. All of us were seeing these things and it was just very strange and it is what it is. Okay, we moved on. Well, then there was another update, and this one again, if you go and you look up the literature from Amazon, now exact match in sponsored brand ads will now do that as well. Which, if you're familiar with any sort of basic strategies when it comes to Amazon advertising, one thing that is really important is if you're going to get aggressive with something, it's pretty important to be very limited with your targeting. And I'm a huge believer in this because if we have, say, a broad match, the potential search terms that are triggered through this, a broader match type is quite significant. Right. So if you're going to get aggressive on something, you're getting aggressive on a larger swath of things and they may convert and they may not. We are not really sure. So if we're going to, be aggressively targeting something, I would prefer to be more limited in my targeting.
The same with ranking campaigns.
Yes.
Change the entire strategy for ranking campaigns. If I bid for something specific, I want to get sales only for that term, and now I'm getting like it doesn't give me control. And I think
Yeah.
you said if they would just add it as an additional targeting, like exact expanded or something like that, would be much nicer because it gives us the option to choose and it's not forcing us. So this is annoying. But yeah, continue with what it does and like with the broaden of that.
So that's essentially it. So exact match will target the exact search term, but it will also trigger additional like relevant, what Amazon deems as relevant. So if I was bidding very aggressively on sneakers in a broad match, exact match, I now could potentially show up on running shoes as well, which makes it very difficult if you're trying to be very strategic with where your sponsored brand ads show up. Because as we all know, sponsored brands has much more creative abilities. You add headlines, you add, visuals and all of that. So one thing that we've, preached a lot of good people in the space will do and is very good practice is if you have very significant search pages to your brand, you would want to be more targeted with your creatives. Now, building this out at scale is very difficult, but if you have like very strategic and important targets, it makes sense to go the extra mile and align your creatives. The problem is if you're targeting, if you end up showing on relevant, you can no longer be like very sure that those headlines and everything is going to be super targeted to what you've shown up at. So
I have a question.
It gets more complicated.
With the exact the difference, like with the terms that you see from the accounts that you manage, is it really like far away from the exact match, or like it's really broad, or it's relatively kind of close? Let's say, for example, we bid exact on hairbrush. Will I get like hairbrush for kids?
So you wouldn't technically get hairbrush for kids. I'm trying to think of a relevant one that would be a hairbrush.
Or you know what, hairbrush for men. Will I get?
Yeah. You might show up on something like hairbrush for him. Would be him. So I mean, like
that's not good.
It's somewhat, you know what I mean? It's not completely, because you don't add all the nuances of like additional root words and like all this kind of craziness. But again, it might not be as targeted, which is kind of our thing. We like to, go aggressive if we're more targeted, maybe less aggressive if we're thinking we might show up on broader terms. And so we kind of staggered it that way. And this kind of throws a wrench in the works. So again, it's kind of like an update to something that was existing that throws a wrench into a lot of the current strategies we're running. And then we have to kind of pivot off of that. So
how you guys change? Like, what's your next moves in order to deal with these changes?
Yeah, so the main thing, and it's not one that we weren't already doing, but, just make sure you're keeping up with your negatives and analyzing your search term reports. So if you only ever did that every once in a while, like we do that constantly for our brands, we're just made a note to be even more vigilant with it. And then also, when it comes to being targeted with sponsored brands, we're still kind of testing that, because even if we move to phrase match, does that really make sense? Because you still have additional search terms that are triggered. I'm honestly not very sure. The jury's still out on that. But yeah, I would just say keeping up with negatives is more important these days.
Yeah, and I think you said the very important thing, like, because it's not that for an exact match I'm gonna give you like ton of search terms. So one really good way to deal with it would just be to add negatives for those terms. And while you talk, I'm going into a campaign and I'm doing it the last 30 days to see how many like similar terms. And so it's basically just I got 3 kind of terms here that are different than the actual one on a campaign that got like 1,000 clicks. So it's not that bad, but it's definitely something that I would monitor like more for sure, because it, like I said, it changed the entire like strategy. For example, I have campaigns that are structurally created to help me with rankings. The good thing is that I kind of like monitor this like every week or two. Does that really help or not? Because sometimes I hear that a lot, like, oh, you have to do a one keyword campaign and do it on a sponsor product, and it should help you, and you're gonna get more sales. And but it's not always the case, you know. Sometimes I don't, not sometimes, I don't know exactly how the algorithm works. Sometimes it will work, sometimes it not. So it's really important to follow this. Yeah, thank you for sharing this. I think that, you know, once you're aware of how things are working and changing, you know, it helps you to deal with it better.
Yeah.
And that leads me to the next kind of question or topic that I want to talk with you, which is your recent post on LinkedIn, where
Mm.
you, I'm gonna read it to the people here and then maybe ask you a question about it, or maybe you can elaborate and explain more. But you mentioned that there are two, you know, things that are more important than ranking, which is the sales growth and market share. And I want you to explain that point because it's very important. A lot of sellers, a lot of you know, even agencies sometimes they kind of always pushing that idea. You need to have more rankings. You need to have like the bestseller. Or like I told you before the
Mm-hmm.
call, I was chasing a bestseller badge, and it really would like. I really realized that it doesn't worth it. But it's very similar to chasing keyword ranking. Sometimes you just want to be top three, but it's not sustainable, or it doesn't really help your bottom line growing sales or
Mm-hmm.
being more profitable. So, you know, why don't you give like your own kind of philosophy about this?
Yeah. So I have an overarching philosophy, which is going to sound very simplistic, and you're like, really, that's not an epiphany, but let me explain. And then I actually have two illustrated points of strategies we run that made me really go, oh, yes, this is something that I always kind of felt was true, but I have illustrations on why it's true. So my overarching philosophy is that sales equals sales. Again, that sounds dumb and like, yes, one, one plus one equals one, like, yes. But I feel like there's so many of these things out here, like BSR, you know, like we have to get the BSR because then I will get sales. I have to get rankings because I'm going to get sales. I have to do, you know, increase my conversion rates because that equals sales. All of those things are good. And do not take this for me saying BSR is pointless and rankings are pointless and increasing conversion rates are pointless. Those things are like conversion rates necessary. Everything
Yeah,
hinges on
yeah.
conversion rate.
I think conversion is a little different than the other that
Right.
stuff.
Well, so my illustrated point there is that those things are a means to an end. They are not the end. So it's important for us to evaluate these things to determine does this in where I am in my business get me to the end goal that I want in a path that I want to follow, to your point of BSR, right? Like, so you're going to go after the BSR. There is magic that happens when you get that badge. Like, no one's discounting that. There is magic that happens when you rank #1 for this keyword. I'm not discounting that. But what I'm discounting
It's
is,
not equal, by the way. Some categories you will
yeah,
see a much bigger effect. Some keywords you will see much bigger
yeah.
effect. It really depends on what the others in the market are doing as
No,
well.
it's very dependent, and every single search page is going to be different. Trust me,
Yeah.
I've puzzled over to see if I can find a systematic way to discover that ad nauseum. Fun fact, I can't as of yet. If I do, you'll be the first to know. So it's this idea of looking at the actual end goal and then determining what is my best path forward. So let me illustrate why ranking does not equal sales with a story. So we had a particular client. They had a product that was struggling with their conversion rates. And they had run up against a strategy that they wanted to test. This client loves testing different strategies, and they're always wanting to try and figure out something. So consequently, it makes a very interesting account to work on. And they, the strategy was double down on only exact match on your highest converting keywords, mainly on sponsored product ads. The goal is that because the ads make up a portion of your sales, because your conversion rates or unit session percentage inside the business reports also includes the ads as well. So if you can influence and get better conversion rates on the ads, then you could influence better conversion rates overall. And then also, because you're targeting your best converting terms, you would also be able to increase your ranking for the
Yeah.
particular product. And so that was great. So they're like, hey, let's test this for a month. Okay, so we tested it, right? And we essentially turned off everything else that was not a high converting exact match keyword. So at the end of the month, we did our assessment, right? And positive things happened. So did our organic ranking increase? Yes.
Yeah.
Increase. Did our conversion rates increase? Yes. Okay. So by all accounts, that strategy worked, except for the fact that sales decreased. And so it made us go, okay, why did this happen? So we went to a session, and it was because of the sessions. Remember when I said the Amazon growth formula: sessions, traffic to the listing, multiplied by the conversion rate times average order value. Product price did not change, so therefore average order value remained consistent. Conversion rate went up, which was more positives. However, traffic to the listing went down. And the reason why is because we had ranked on a very select high value amount of keywords, but what we did is we lost visibility across all of the other lower value placements that we had been running at, which might not have had as good conversions, or they might not have been a very high value placement. Like maybe it's a product page here, or a long tail keyword there, or maybe we triggered through some random charms and broad match or sponsored display ads, or all of these other swaths of things we were doing. And then that made me go, okay, so ranking went up, but sales went down. So therefore getting very, like, that's not, so my point is not that rankings are bad. My point is that rankings are not the only piece to the puzzle. And then here, that brings me into my second story. So actually,
I'm going to add something after that is very related. Very related. No, you can say after.
Okay, cool. All right, so second story. Again, same account. We had a product that had a bestseller badge, right? We lost the bestseller badge. And I cannot take credit for the strategy. It was simply my account manager. So the difference between a bestseller badge and a ranking is that with a rankings are in a large part determined by the sales velocity you have on one specific search page. Right. That's why a lot of people will be like, how are my competitors ranking higher than me here? Like, I'm selling more. You're selling more overall, but that doesn't mean you're selling more on this specific search. So that's how that works. So you have to convert on one search. Now, with the bestseller ranking, it is the cumulative sales in the entire category. So it's simply a matter of sales. It's not a matter of sales on specific targets. So we lost the bestseller badge. The problem is that we were struggling with, not struggling, but we had very defined total ACoS targets. And the client didn't want to move outside of that. So we're like, okay, great. We need to increase the sales velocity, but we can't really increase the total ACoS numbers. So what are we going to do? I honestly had no idea. That's why I said I can't take credit for this strategy. I have amazing people on my team. So she was like, all right, the goal is to increase sales. So I'm just going to increase sales anywhere and everywhere I possibly can. So what she did is she went into the account and she simply increased budgets on things or bids for everything that was running below our targets. Now, most of the things that are running below our targets are like our broad match keywords, our categories, our autos, like all the things that you typically don't want to scale in an account because you're not trying to have most of those campaigns run, you know, kind of your entire account, because there's possible fluctuations long term if you do that too long. But that being said, this is for a very specific time frame, and it was like, goal is sales. I need profitable sales because, again, total ACoS constraints. So where do I get sales at the most profitable level possible? So that's what she went to do about the account. She was able to regain the bestseller badge back. I don't remember if it was either 3 or 4 days with less than 1 point increase in the total ACoS.
So wait, they lost it and they got it back with this strategy of going increasing budget on under that target.
Yeah. And so that made me go, okay, so it's a sales game, right? So sales equals sales. Again, all of these things are means to an end. It's not that they're bad. It's just looking at a broader perspective and saying, okay, if sale, 10% increase in my total account is my goal, total sales volume, then which places allow me to get that 10% increase within my constraint being, say total ACoS, or only have X amount of budget, or, like what's the flip side? Because there's always some sort of constraint.
It's very funny that you mentioned that, because that's exactly the direction that I took in my account, because like I told you, we were focusing on the BSR, and the
Mhm.
BSR, what the strategy was, okay, we're gonna go after the highest search volume keywords, try to rank there, and we're gonna get the bestseller. And then it was kind of a game of on and off for
Mhm.
2 days. We got it, then the competitors, and we were playing against a very, we are with 1,000 reviews, but the top guys with 30,000, 25,000. It was
Mhm.
very hard to keep it up. And now the strategy is really, we don't really care where we're getting the sales. Actually, we see that the best performing is auto campaigns, and we have some crazy auto campaigns which don't give us a lot of control, but they are profitable. And we see that it's kind of a snowball,
Mhm.
that we just like total trend, the sales going so high, but we actually spend less on PPC.
Mhm.
So me as a seller, as a brand owner, I care about the sales. I care about the what I make to my pocket. This strategy proved to me to be better than just going after specific
Mhm.
targets, or create, like, also we posed a lot of campaigns. We had a ton of campaigns. We are like squeezing it, making it more manageable, easier to kind of like make quick changes. So that's the strategy. But you mentioned that this strategy have long-term like fluctuations. What do you mean by that? If you can give like a
Mm.
little details, like why
Yeah,
it can
yeah.
hurt you long term.
So this was best illustrated to me auditing several accounts and also going through it a little bit with some of our own brands. So I find that this happens mainly right after Q4 and Q1. So the thing that will happen is in Q4, conversion rates are just bomb. They're amazing, right? And so what we'll do is we'll go into these, and we have a lot of lower bid strategies, so like lower bid autos or lower bid broad matches or everything. And again, kind of going back to our original conversation on the match types and how we don't tend to go more aggressive on things with the potential to target a whole bunch of search terms, is just because less control over those potential search terms. So
Yeah.
what will happen is your autos and your broads and everything, you're like, oh my gosh, this works. And they're triggering all these search terms. Well, the conversion rates are a lot higher. So the tendency, and this is actually how you guard against this, is either one, just keeping a record of what your previous bids were prior to like the acceleration. So you have a reset file. Or another way to do that would be to just increase budgets and not necessarily increase bids, is another way to do this. And you kind of vary between those two. But what I've seen happen so many times is like everyone's like, oh my gosh, autos are working. So a common thing and one good practice we do is like, okay, these are working well, increase the bids. And what happens on autos and broad matches or category targetings or all your like, very broad sweeping match types is they go out and find more search terms, or they continuously spend more aggressively on very select terms. And that is perfectly fine until the day of or right after Christmas, when all of the conversion rates go in the toilet. And if there's any Amazon sellers out here who've been selling more than 1 year, right after
Yeah.
Christmas, everything falls, nobody's making sales. That
Or
first,
Prime Day.
yes, that first week of January, unless you have like a New Year's Eve thing or like a New Year, New Me type product, for the savvy sellers are like, all right, this is just the game we play. And for the first time sellers, everyone's in the forums like, are your sales down? Because, they just had this huge ramp up period. Well, what happens is if you continuously have increased your bids and increase your budget for these broader targeting types, Amazon is not necessarily going to stop spending just because your conversion rates went down. They're going to continuously spend. So your spend is going to keep going like this, and your sales are going like this, which, as we know, ACoS is ad spend divided by ad sales. And if ad sales are going down, that number is going up. And everyone's trying to figure out what happened and how to fix it. So that's a cycle that I've seen more than once in audited accounts. And so we had a seller who ended up going with another service because he was looking for full service management, and he's like, they'll just manage everything for me. And yeah, that's cool. I mean, that's what he needed at the time. So, we parted ways amicably. And he came back to me at the end of Q1 this year, and he was like, hey, can you take a look
Wait,
at
sorry to interrupt, but you said full managing service. You mean as
right?
full manage like
Yeah,
their entire account, not just for the PPC?
correct. Yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
why that would actually help him? Like it's purely like a
Oh,
PPC kind of
he
thing,
don't
no?
want to have to deal with it anymore. And they also managed ads as well. So yeah, he was like, oh, I'm perfectly happy with the service. It wasn't, he just wanted an additional service we didn't offer. But he ended up coming back to us in the end of Q1 and he was like, hey, I'm seeing things like just not working. They weren't working as well as you did when you were managing it, and I can't figure it out. And I went in there and I'm like, Q1, okay. Sure enough, this is what happened. All the broader targets had way too high of bids and things were, and they had also gotten a little bit less specific where we had been very granular. So we've re-implemented the strategy and things are great. But that's a very common thing. So it's not that you don't want to expect bad performance in Q1 or like right after Christmas. But there's ways you can kind of brace your account for it or at least be aware of it. So if it is really bad, you have just a day or two to correct and then you're not like well into January still trying to figure out what's going on.
Okay, so you basically the way to deal with it just you know, adjusting the bids and be more aware and like figure out that you have those or the most of your sales or a lot big portion come from those to be like alert. That's good. Actually, for us in this account, I sold the one brand last year, and but then with the new account that we're working on, Q1 is actually even like more crazier than Q4.
Well, there you go.
So yeah, so that's you know, that's a good thing. But yeah, it's really nice. You know, this is something a lot of you know, a lot of people are talking about, like the Prime Day results. You see what everyone else are seeing, like as far as the lift, like we didn't have any promotions, we just saw like an easy quick 3x lift, which was really you know, fun to watch. We had on the other side the product that we saw those amazing results and the product was kind of ready. We had 200, we had like 6 colors coming and we launched with 6 colors and we had 200 from each color available already, but we said we're gonna wait when we have 500 because it's a
Yeah.
high velocity item. But we saw the good results of Prime Day. We said, let's launch it. Let's launch. We launched, and it kind of swallowed between all the products. We lost a lot of money. It wasn't as we thought it's going to be. But you know, the other products did really good, so it was amazing. What can you share about Prime Day from your own perspective and what you saw from the accounts you managed?
Yeah, no, same thing that we saw. We definitely saw things do really well, and we got some advice from some other managers that I know, and then passed that along to our clients that doing Prime Day coupons. I'm trying to remember what it is.
Exclusive, yeah,
Yeah.
Prime Day exclusive discount or something.
That's
That
it. Prime
budget.
Day exclusive discounts. Those absolutely crush. And we saw that as well. Anyone who had those on, which is kind of essentially like a coupon, it's just, it allows you to get the badge, which therefore like performs really, really great. So anyone who had those enabled did really well. The one
We got
thing,
screwed with that actually because
yeah.
what happened is that we tried to get the Prime exclusive badge, and it's 20% below your lowest
Yeah.
price. I think in the last 30 or 60 days. And my partner tried to play with the pricing, and we actually went lower than what we've been.
Oh,
And now the deal, we are constantly running deals. So the deal now wants us to be lower than what we usually do by $2. So we're like, oh, tomorrow I have a deal and I'm seeing that lower price that I
yeah.
didn't plan to have. So it's kind of annoying. And I don't know like how long I should wait. I think it's like 30 or 60. I don't know. I hope
I
it's
think
30
it's
days.
30 days. From my
I
understanding, I
hope
believe
so.
it's 30 days.
I hope
Yeah.
it's 30.
There's definitely
See-
those fun things that you got to watch out for, which I should have you on and talk about coupons because I don't think I've had anyone really talk about coupons and how to leverage those. But yeah, that's what we saw is there was definitely the significant uplift. I think the thing that we were somewhat surprised on was how big the decrease was post Prime Day. Because
Yeah.
everyone talks about going into Prime Day and like everyone expects to have crappy conversion rates and everyone expects to have low sales like going into Prime Day just because shoppers are primed and kind of waiting. Again, everyone's saying, and I would tend to agree, it was one of the most significant Prime Days most other people have seen. But the thing that I haven't heard a lot of people talking about is how big the dip was after Prime Day. I was actually talking with Michael from Ad Badger, because we were comparing our accounts, and then he pulled up because they have their advertising tool, which aggregates like a lot of accounts and like all of that data.
So they
And
can see the
essentially,
trends.
yeah, essentially what happened is the 2 days post Prime Day had worse sales than the 2 days prior to Prime Day.
So Ors, okay, so after it's
Yeah.
funny. I think we had a similar thing. So that was the 11th and the 12th, right?
Yes, 11th and 12th, and directly following, which it doesn't always super pick up. Like no one expects, like a huge ramp up afterwards. I guess the thing that just surprised me is we expect the prior 2 days to be garbage. I didn't expect the next 2 days after Prime Day to be that garbage.
Actually, you're right. It's also I see that. So on the 13th, I see it was lower than the day before, like not
Yeah.
by much, but it was lower. And also, yeah, the 3 days after was really worse than days before. Um, yeah, it's only now it's starting to recover.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, it's on the up and up. Actually, I was talking with someone else, and we were kind of debating this subject, and he said the way that they look at it, and I kind of liked that, is because everyone's going to isolate Prime Day and say it was great, which it was. I'm not discounting it. Conversion rates were up and ACoS was down and everyone's super profitable, but also the weirdness before and then also after.
yeah,
He was saying the way that they looked at it, because total ACoS was pretty bad days, 2 days after we reset bids and we did all best practices, to kind of bring it back to level. But looking at July as a whole, so at the end of the day, at the end of the month, kind of doing a recap and looking at it in a broader perspective as far as like what was total ACoS, what was profitability, what was sales for my account in the entire month of July, and then allowing that to give you a broader perspective as to how effective Prime Day was on your
yeah.
account.
You have to look at it as a whole, like the days before and after. Take everything into considerations. Do your average. Does it really worth it? That's why I don't run like those deals anymore, because yeah, you might have crazy spike in sales, but it's not always converting into profits.
Yeah.
And that's what I had in the first 3 years that I was selling, on Amazon, and I just decided to stop 2 years. Like
Yeah.
I
I
didn't
mean,
do.
so I think if you have consumable products, or if there are products that you're trying to liquidate,
Yeah,
there are certain products
of
that will
course.
have extreme advantages from significant sales growth.
Yeah,
So
yeah, you're
I've
right.
heard some of my full management friends have like this genius strategy that they're running. So they run Prime Day deals like during Prime Day, so you can get the badge and that creates the lift. But then afterwards, they'll put a subscribe and save coupon and then run retargeting ads, because they've
Okay.
gotten all the traffic. So then they can then do the
Uh,
retargeting and then offering discounts on the retargeting,
consumable
because
item.
it's
Okay.
consumable, and they have the subscribe and save, which gets them into the ecosystem, and then you have a longer lifetime value of the customer. So I think that there will always be those kind of outliers and people that can really leverage things. So I don't want to like completely discount sales volume. Although I would say for the average seller, it definitely, take everything in perspective, celebrate, that you did massive sales volume, but then also kind of look at the broader perspective.
Yeah, yeah. That's actually reminded me the new page called Brand Tailored Promotions.
Yeah,
Did you see it? So that's
I
kind of
did. I did.
allowing you to target. Actually, the start date was today for our
Mhm.
product, and like it's huge. I wasn't really like aware that there's so many people that card vendors in the last 90 days, and that's very interesting to see how it can really help to with sales. I don't know what kind of dashboard or reporting they will give, but
Mhm.
what do you think about this so far? Like, do you
No,
have
I
any?
think it's really amazing that Amazon is. It seems to me that they're working to give brands leverage through Amazon tools, because if you sell Shopify or if you sell off Amazon platform, people always talk about like owning the customers and being able to like market to them, and that is an advantage. The problem with Amazon not offering it, and like Amazon's dilemma is, you have to realize when they roll out things, as much as it may seem annoying that we have very limited restrictions sometimes, they're rolling it out to everyone, and they honestly have to factor in the lowest common denominator. So if they were allowing people to like own own the emails of all the clients, yes, at some level, I think they're trying to, kind of own it and keep in their ecosystem. But the other thing is they have no idea what people are going to do with those emails. Are they going to run ridiculous retargeting ads? Again, lowest common denominator, who's getting emails and what are they sending them? They have no idea. So what they're faced with this dilemma is that they have to keep things uniquely Amazon, because it is Amazon's brand, essentially. They are allowing us to leverage their brand recognition and their brand loyalty to be able to sell at the volumes we do, which is phenomenal. And obviously we sell makes them money. So it's not that they're not getting something out of the deal, but they definitely have to still keep things distinctly Amazon and within an ecosystem that they can protect to make sure that customers are not going to have bad reactions. So they've done that through, trying to have posts, or like you're saying, opening up new coupons, or there is ways for you to do like brand follows now. And there is some, sort of retargeting and marketing to brand loyal customers in the form of, getting people to follow your brand. So there's things that they're trying. It is somewhat of a dilemma, though.
You're right. Thank you, Elizabeth. I think that we had a great conversation here. I love the fact that you actually always, not having assumptions, always testing, always, measuring and trying new things. And I'm sure this helps you, together with your experience managing a ton of accounts, getting your clients really good results. So anyone that is looking for a good agency, I can tell you that Elizabeth is honest, she's professional, and you should definitely contact her if you're looking for someone reliable to basically take yourselves up. Then contact her. You can mention that you heard about it through this podcast. It might help me as well. And even not, if not mentioning it, you should contact her. She's amazing, and I appreciate you coming here again and sharing all these nuggets and knowledge with us. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. I really appreciate you having me on. I always enjoy our conversations.
Yes. Hopefully it's not going to be the last time.
No, for sure. Not if I have anything to do with it.
All right. Thank you again, and we'll be in touch.